suffering of displaced people in Yemen exacerbates, especially in winter. Injured soldiers in Al-Dala demand the government to provide medical treatment. Houthis continue to recruit children soldiers and send them to war fronts. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shazad Delvain. The Eritrean authorities released 121 Yemeni fishermen months after their arrest. Local sources said that the fishermen arrived on Saturday evening at the port of Mekha west of Taiz by boats. It was reported that among the released fishermen were children from Taiz and Hodeidah. The suffering of displaced people in Marib aggravates, especially in winter. Displaced families keep complaining from lack of basic life necessities that could ease the bitterness of winter. This report has more details.
The suffering of displaced people continues in different Yemeni governorates. Nothing new has occurred regarding humanitarian interventions in the camps of the displaced for years, except for the fluctuations of the harsh natural factors that make the suffering of the displaced more difficult. Ruined and worn-out tents that cannot withstand more than 6 months. Families displaced by the war live under them. Today, they face the dangers of exposure to severe cold waves. They are located in desert areas where the cold wave intensifies more during the evening period.
Displaced people in different camps are going through a hard time due to the cold weather. We are here in a sit camp. We are lacking a lot of life necessities and needs that can protect us from the cold of the winter. Displaced people are in severe need. Their children are dying from the cold weather. International and humanitarian organizations are sending relief aid, but we don't receive any of it. Big families live inside a tent with 1 or 2 blankets. This is not enough. How are they supposed to survive during this time?
Ilsit camp of displaced people in Al Jawf is no different from the situation of the rest of the camps. The children of the camp go out every morning and evening to be exposed to the sun rays to obtain natural heating, while this little girl tries to bring firewood daily from far distances for her family to set fire to their tent and warm it up. Despite putting more blankets on the tents, perhaps it will provide a suitable place for children, elders, and family members to have a warm tent.
The weather is very cold in the morning. Our tent is very small and we don't have anything to keep us warm. We don't have jackets or blankets. We want to go back to our home. We used to have everything there. The cold is very hard that we can't even run around or play. Some of us die from this weather.
In light of a harsh winter that carries the harshest cold waves, according to meteorologists, the displaced may face the fate of death as a result of the cold and the complications of the diseases it causes. And it seems that the concerned authorities and humanitarian organizations turn a blind eye to the tragedy of thousands of displaced people who live in harsh conditions in weak tents and lack the slightest means of protection. From the severe cold, deaths including children have already been recorded as a result of the cold during the past year.
بعد ما دمرت السواقي بسبب السيول، الناس هاجرت، حد إلى المكلا وحد إلى البحر وحد إلى دوعا وحد إلى حتى الجبال. كنا صراحة مدمرين وما عندنا أي شيء. كانت الناس في فقر لا يعلمه إلا الله. وقت عصيب. والله أنا لما نزلت مزرعتي ما عرفتها إطلاقا.
Unknown people set fire to a mosque in Al-Dala. Families think that there is an involvement of a second party in the crime. Yet they pointed out that buying a large amount of gasoline and using it to set fires can only be done by Houthis. Injured soldiers of the government have called on the PLC to provide them medical treatment, especially when those fighters sacrificed their lives defending the country. This report has more details.
The war wounded due to the Houthi militia on Al-Dala front suffer from neglect that is not commensurate with what those heroes gave in defense of land, freedom and dignity. Where the wounded young man Akram Abdullah complains about the deterioration of his health and his being paralyzed after complications from the injury to his spine due to a gunshot he sustained in one of the battles. Because of the unavailability of the treatment cost recommended by the doctors and the necessity of his travel to another country, and this caused the deterioration of his health condition as he became unable to move.
I was injured in the front of Al-Dala with a bullet in the spine that left me half paralyzed. I was taken to Aden to receive medical treatment. Then I traveled abroad at my own expense. I returned to Aden, but the authorities did not complete my treatment.
And in this humble house in the village of Lakmat al-Duki in Hajr in the district of Al-Dala, the wounded Ali Awaidan sits on his wheelchair and could barely speak after his injury in Al-Dala, which immobilized him since the year 2015, to live a story of pain and suffering like many of the injured on the fronts of Al-Dala, where families have become sharing the suffering and pain of those forgotten ones beside their suffering due to the economic decline, the absence of health services, and the absence of the government role in such issues.
I call on the government to look at me, the fighter Ali Awaidan, as I have been paralyzed since 2015 because of my injury for the sake of the country. My father was injured in the spine and his treatment was not completed and he is immobilized.
The two wounded Akram and Awaidan are models of the reality experienced by the war wounded on Al-Dala fronts, many of whom have not received treatment. Therefore, their lives become between the pain of injury and the pain of neglect and oblivion by the competent authorities, and there are still demands of their justice and an end to their suffering.
The 16th campaign to fight gender-based violence was concluded in Shabwa. The campaign was conducted by the Humanitarian Access Foundation in the framework of the activities of the Protection and Livelihood of Support project funded by the United Nations Population Fund. At the closing ceremony, economic empowerment grants were handed out to trainees in the fields of sewing. Neighborhoods and main streets in Aden were flooded with sewage water. Local sources said that the water overflowed the Mansoura district and other places. Sources added that despite this, concerned authorities have not intervened to stop this mess. A new phase of afforestation was installed in the public road line of Aden. The director of the Public Authority for Environmental Protection explained that this comes in implementation of the governor. According to him, the practical plan for next year includes many diverse environmental activities that are to be organized in coordination with a number of different sectors. Iran-backed Houthis continue to recruit children and soldiers and send them to war fronts. This comes after previous assurance from the Houthis that they have stopped using children in armed conflict. This report has more details.
Yemen's urgent humanitarian and economic needs to create a genuine opportunity to restart Yemen's political process. The Houthis have signed an action plan with the United Nations to end and prevent the recruitment and use of children in armed as well as other grave violations. The Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict, Ms. Virginia Gamba, signed the action plan in New York as a witness and welcomed this additional measure to reinforce the protection of Yemeni children who have suffered tremendously after 7 years of destructive conflict. She said the United Nations welcomes efforts by all parties to the conflict to end and prevent grave violations against children, and this commitment by the Houthis is a positive and encouraging step in that direction. All main parties to the conflict in Yemen have signed commitment to end and prevent grave violations against children. Through this action plan, the Houthi commit to ending the recruitment and use of children, including in support roles, identifying and releasing children from their ranks, and providing them with rehabilitation support, provision provisions on the prevention of the killing and maiming of children and on the protection of health and education facilities are also included in the action plan. More than 10,200 children have been killed or maimed, and close to 3,500 children have been verified as recruited and used in Yemen since the beginning of the conflict, which recently entered its 8th year. Yemen is also one of the countries with the highest number of incidents of denial of humanitarian access to populations in need, including children. The availability of the United Nations to support the Houthis and other parties in Yemen in the implementations of action plans and of other measures to reinforce the protection of children from the ravages of hostilities.
Coming next in the news. People around the globe mark the World Arabic Language Day today.
أنا خارج ألعب جهة أصحابي وهو الرمو علينا إن إحنا لو نرمو قعلي أصحابي صراحوا يدعوا أصحاب المخيم بزين صراحوا شايفين. صعب إن معي شيء رجل ما أقدرش ألعب مع أصحابي أو قد آخر ألعب بالليل.
أصلاً الولد ما قلب ما بذنبه أي حاجة، ولما يشوف أصحابه يلعبوا وهو برجل واحدة يتعقد الولد الحركات والصوت. هذا أثر علينا كلنا، الوالدة والوالد.
كنت قاعدة أنا حماصك، كنت ألعب كورة وأجري برجلي وألعب مع أصحابي، بعدين أقص والآن ما أقدرش.
Welcome back. The United Nations marks December 18 as the World Arabic Language Day. Despite having diverse and competitive languages, Arabic remains one of the most important tools of communication today, especially among the Islamic world. This report has more details.
The Arabic language is known for its rich synonyms and phrases, which hold between its folds a lot of meanings and messages. The Arabic language is a pillar of the cultural diversity of humanity. It is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world, used daily by more than 400 million people. Thus, the United Nations recognized its importance and decided on December 18 to be the World's Arabic Language Day, and it is celebrated every year on this date accordingly. Although the Arabic language is the language of Islam, it dates back over 100 years further. The earliest Arabic inscriptions were created in the early 6th century. Arabic was originally based mainly on the alphabet, which was then modified and adapted over many years to finally become its very own, distinct language. In 632, the year that Muslims believed the Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, the Arabic language became the language of the newest religion on earth. The Holy Book of Islam was written in classical Arabic, and it is still used in religious ceremonies till this day. By the 8th century, many poems and other works had been written in Arabic as well. Arabic has had an enormous influence on people all over the world, as the majority of countries officially use the Arabic numerical system. Furthermore, because of the countless wars waged in the Middle Ages especially, the Arabic language is an important source of vocabulary for many European languages, such as Portuguese, Spanish, English, and French, as well as non-European languages, such as Swahili. Many of the words that English speakers use regularly come from Arabic, including cotton, mukka, and guitar. World Arabic Language Day was established to promote cultural understanding and to highlight Arabic as one of the most important languages in the world.
Tomato farmers in Lahj and Ebyan received financial losses as a result of poor marketing and low prices. According to the farmers, this season was very harsh for them as the prices of tomatoes were low and the prices of one basket reached about 3,000 riyals. Economic sources confirmed that the Yemeni capital avoids investing in the tomato sector, although they may invest and help in adding new and promising production. Countrywomen in Yemen have contributed to the agricultural sector and food crisis in Yemen. This report has more details.
After 7 years of continuous armed conflict, rural communities of Yemen are growing more dependent on women, their grit and resilience. As wages for other types of work have plummeted or dried out, women are now often the sole breadwinners. Women use the money they make from selling crops to cover their family's basic needs. They face numerous challenges, including the risk of injury, while fetching water or harvesting crops. However, the alternative is more dire. The loss of food security and stability would cause a great harm to their family members, so they work to bring in a stable household income. This bleak prospect is what women typically face in rural Yemen. Very little of Yemen's staples, wheat and rice, are produced domestically. In 2016, a year after the conflict began, the amount of cultivated land decreased by an average 38%. According to World Bank research on climate adaptation, almost two-thirds of Yemenis still rely on agriculture to make ends meet, and more than 75% live in rural areas, where women represent about 95% of the labor force. In these rural societies, women play a pivotal role, not only in food security but also land management and mitigation of the effects of climate change on water, which is already infrequent. Despite the social pressures placed on them, as well as shouldering all the domestic chores and the brunt of a global pandemic, Yemeni women have continued to work the land. Agriculture and grazing animals are the main sources of income for many families, especially since all salaries were cut off by the conflict. They grow corn, wheat, and barley. However, rains come late, and when they do come, they are insufficient, causing a decline in crop yields. Climate change has affected the agricultural season, especially in northern Yemen. This has created even more hardship for families. Extreme weather, which many scientists attribute to an increase in the pace of climate change, has had a devastating impact on farms, putting people's livelihood at risk. Agriculture has helped families to improve their living conditions, and the contribution of rural women to farming, income, and food security cannot be overstated.
The Houthi militia reimposed taxes on merchants and shopkeepers in Ib. A number of merchants reported that the militia forced shop owners to pay new fees in a number of districts in the governorate. The merchants indicated that the rebels sent field teams to collect the taxes by force. The deputy governor of Hadramaut launched a free medical camp for eye surgery in Sayoun. The camp will last for 3 days under the auspices of specialized medical staff. The deputy praised the efforts made by the community organizations and the health sector to implement such camps that contribute to ease the suffering of citizens. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Suffering of displaced people in Yemen exacerbates, especially in winter. Injured soldiers in Al-Dala demand the government to provide medical treatment. Houthis continue to recruit children soldiers and send them to war fronts. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.